You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins.
Hello there, everybody. Welcome to another podcast. It's another day after Thanksgiving. Not really after Thanksgiving, but, hopefully you had a great holiday. Hopefully your family time was good. Hopefully your decompression was good. But this podcast rolls on, continuing to bring you conversations with people who are involved in independent music, whether that's like playing it, documenting it, being impacted by it in a deep, deep way. And this person, of course, symbolizes it. His name is Jeff Howe. He plays currently in a band called Horsewhip, which the song I will play kind of leading into the interview is from Horsewhip, an amazing band. Florida legends, as far as I'm concerned. But Jeff also played in Reversal of Man, and he also played in Combatwoundedveteran, which is an incredible band. All of these exist in Florida. And Florida, as far as a hardcore scene is concerned, has always been so interesting to me because geographically speaking, like you really got to want to go there. It's not like a Los Angeles or New York where you have to go there. It's definitely a thing that, like they got to build their own scene down there. And Jeff talks a lot about that. He also talks a lot about his time on the road with Asuk, and the time that they went out with them as far as Reversal of Man is concerned. But Jeff, just a really cool dude. And Horsewhip, that record blew my mind. Really, really good, like D-beat, blackened hardcore, whatever you want to call it, but came out on Iodine Records, and the name of the record is called Consume and Burn, for those of you that need to listen to it immediately, because I would encourage you to do that. But anyways, that's who we have on the show this week. You can always reach out to the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I love to hear feedback, questions, concerns, future guest ideas, whatever the case may be. Love to correspond. Also, if you would not mind, I know every podcast asks you to do this, but there's a reason that we do this, and we beg of you. Leave a rating and review on the Apple Podcast page, and then on Spotify, all you need to do is leave a rating. Takes you maybe all of three of those things will take you maybe 30, 45 seconds at the most. I would appreciate it immensely. Just helps the algorithms, helps all of the, legitimization that happens on the internet in order for other people to discover things. It just helps out. So, I had a great break. Was able to spend some time, kind of decompressing and being away from a computer screen, which is always, always nice. And, I'm excited to be going to some shows coming up. For the Children, if you are not familiar, is an amazing event that Nate from Zabalba puts on, has been putting on for, I don't know, maybe this is like its 10th year, it feels like. It's been going on for quite some time. But holy moly, what a lineup of like Monuments headlining, Movements, not Monuments. You know what I'm talking about. And then Tsunami, I'm excited because the band I manage, Roman Candle, is playing the show. And then some other deeper cuts, Killing Pace. I am so excited to see them. But whenever someone does something like For the Children, where it's like, not only is it a great music festival, but the whole premise is that you bring a toy. And this isn't like just some chintzy toy. This is like, this is something a kid will be very excited about for Christmas, and the amount of toys that they donate to this particular organization is so, so cool. And I don't know, kudos to Nate and his entire team for putting it together and making it such a positive impact on not only the community, but the world outside of hardcore and punk, because, whenever we can take it outside these walls, it is, oh man, it's very, very special. So anyways, let's talk to Jeff Howe from Horsewhip, Reversal of Man, Combatwoundedveteran. If you care about South Florida hardcore, you will absolutely love this conversation. So here we go. Here's Jeff. like I mentioned, with seeing Reversal of Man a few times, like I want to say I saw you guys play the PCH Club on tour with Asuk.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and that show was spectacular because I enjoyed both your bands, and it was like, oh, great, like two bands from Florida that it's very difficult to get out here to California, but you guys did it, and thanks for playing here.
I think twice even. I think we did PCH twice.
You did. I saw you that other. I saw you both times there, and it was such an interesting time from a late '90s perspective, where the collision of more people paying attention to this particular scene. But now it's funny to have this conversation in 2023 where it's like hardcore is the most popular it ever has been.
Mm-hmm.
but you guys, I think always kind of like landed in that interesting space where it's like, you obviously were excited to tour, put out music and do all the things that, you're quote unquote supposed to do as a band. But then clearly that, DIY nature stuck in you where you were obviously not going to do anything you guys felt uncomfortable with. And I realize this is kind of a big question to start things off, but, I personally loved both sides of the spectrum, but it's like, your quote unquote mainstream hardcore on Victory Records. And then obviously like what you guys were doing. Did you feel like you had to, for lack of a better term, like pick a side at that particular time?
I don't think so. I feel like we all kind of gravitated towards the more DIY. It felt like it was more yours. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I feel like Reversal Man wasn't just the five of us. It was everyone involved at home, at every show, on tour, who was helping out. It was for everyone. And I think doing it the DIY way made everyone feel like it was theirs, and I think we liked that. Also, I don't think we ever really had a real opportunity to do it any other way. Probably the closest was with Kent and Ebullition. And he was awesome helping us out. So.
Right. Yeah, no. And I guess that is a funny way of putting it where it's like, well, yeah, we never knew what it was like on the other side of the aisle. So we can't really, we were forced to pick a side just because we didn't have a choice to, join the other club or whatever.
Yeah. I'm sure, 20 something years later, I think, if you're like, I'm still playing music, I think we look at things a little differently. I mean, if I could have been making a living off of playing music till now, I would be pretty stoked on that now. Back then, I probably been, more of a kid's answer and be like, fuck that shit, but.
Right. and it did seem, I mean, especially too with that particular scene, the, whether it's the Maximum Rock and Roll Ebullition, like, we don't want to have barcodes on our records. And like that, it's such a, I feel like 175 years old anytime I speak to somebody, even like just a few years younger than me, to say that was like an actual consideration and a thought process that bands had to like really reckon with in order to feel what they were comfortable with,
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think Reversal Man or Combat ever really dealt with any having to deal with a barcode type situation. Maybe it came up with the last Combat record because it was a way to be able to distribute it in other places besides just here.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like that was something, but at the same time, it wasn't, printed on the back of the jacket. It was, if it was anything, it was a sticker or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And and I think to your point, that idea of the, sort of instinctual nature of like, oh, I don't want to, be a part of something that feels like you are joining, like, you're turning your art into a job or whatever. And like the obvious, like you said, like many aspects of that sound cool, but then, when you're 20 years old and just being like, oh yeah, why the hell would I do that? Like, I don't want to, join the rat race and turn this thing that I enjoy into something soul sucking.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, now, like if that was an option to do, I probably would have done it. And
Right.
maybe I'd look at things differently now. But I still you're seeing all these bands that were around when we were either reuniting or still together now, and I don't know. They seem to be able to make a living wage off of playing music, which sounds pretty fucking awesome.
Right. Yeah. You're like, suck my soul, baby. No.
Yeah, a little bit, but also
Yeah.
at the same time, not that I'm unhappy with what I did,
Right.
but and maybe I don't know, maybe that makes playing music a little more fun still. So
Yeah. Right.
hard to
There's
say 'cause I don't get paid to to make music.
right. Well, we'll pull on that string a little bit later, but just kind of putting the focus on you as a person. I know you were, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were born and raised in Florida, but where in particular?
Actually, I was born in Oakland, California.
Oh, then I am wrong. Okay.
My dad was in the Navy, so he moved around quite a bit. So I was born in Oakland, lived in Guam, lived in Chicago, and then Orlando. And we stayed in Orlando since I think we were in elementary school, and we moved to Orlando, and we stayed there while my dad got deployed other places. And then after high school, I moved down to Tampa because I was playing in Universal Man and driving to Tampa every weekend anyway. So it made sense to me just move to Tampa.
Got
So,
it.
yeah.
So I mean, there have been a few people on this show that have had that experience of what you're talking about, whether it's like, I know Wes from American Nightmare, he traveled around a lot internationally because his father was part of the military.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have that kind of, chameleon-like personality where it's like, no matter where you went, you had to, assimilate to whoever your new group of friends was?
Not so much because we were young.
Okay.
Like I said, we lived in Guam, which is a tiny island in the Pacific. I think I went to like kindergarten there, maybe, and then I was in second grade. Second grade? I don't know how old I was. We moved to Chicago after that, and then I think I was in second grade when we moved to Florida, and then we stayed, so we didn't have to like move around while me and my brother were like growing up. Didn't have to go make new friends or anything like that.
That's good. Right. Yeah. You anchored yourself where you knew you
Yeah.
didn't. Right. Yeah. How much older is your brother than you?
2 years, a little over 2 years.
Okay. So almost Irish twins, as they say.
Almost. Yeah.
So did you guys, I mean, I know you learned from each other just because that's obviously what siblings do, but did he kind of go down the path of getting into music as well, or did he expose you to stuff, or very different?
Absolutely not. We were very different. Couldn't be more different, probably. He was pretty popular in high school. He was like homecoming king and stuff like that. Where in me, I didn't give a damn. I was just wanted to skateboard and play music. We always got along though, which was fine. But yeah, we were polar opposites when it came to that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure there was that idea of, he's participating in some of the regular high school things. And it's just like, oh, yeah, it's my, weirdo brother that's skating by at, going to a show or whatever.
Yeah. It was, I think his friends were always nice to me. And
that's good.
So that was fine. But again, like I didn't care about the school dances and all that stuff. And he did.
Sure. What kind of kid did you find yourself being as you were, starting to develop an identity in regards to, maybe later elementary school, junior high, that sort of stuff? Like, did you, play sports? Did you gravitate towards, I know you said skateboarding. Where did you start to find yourself?
So younger me was, playing baseball and t-ball, I think. And then, I think I think I discovered skateboarding and just kind of stuck with that. I played a little bit of soccer with some friends on a league, but that didn't last very long because I was horrible at it. But yeah, skateboarding. I just stuck with it. That was where I, met the people that introduced me to hardcore and straight edge and veganism, and that's just kind of what stuck with me.
Right. Did you, were you good at skateboarding?
I was horrible. I was not, just not like, I think I was afraid to get hurt, so I wouldn't try things,
Sure.
and like, if I had the mentality that I have now, it'd probably be a little different. But back then I was like, I'd see my friends fall and be like, yep, don't want to do that.
Right.
So I always had a camera with me, so I'd always like take pictures. So I always had like a camera at shows and stuff too. So I got a ton of old pictures of random bands that I don't even know what or who they are. A bunch of pictures of my friends skateboarding, and so that was my thing. I picked up just a point and shoot camera and shot horrible photos too.
Sure. You were the documenter, as it were.
Sure, yeah.
Right. You're like, I will ollie up a curb. I'm not going to do a 3-stair and break my arm.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
I'll push around. I think
Sure.
actually when I moved. I was gone from Florida for a long time, and I moved back down here about 17 years ago now. I bought a skateboard. I was like, I'm gonna, just like take the dog on a walk and skateboard. And I fell once, and I was like, okay, I'm done with that. I couldn't do it.
You're like, thanks, but no thanks. That's exactly why I didn't do that in the first place.
Yep.
So when you started to get, introduced to more independent leaning music, what did you gravitate towards? Was it, I'm guessing obviously the energy, the message, like a lot of those things were infiltrating you, but what specifically spoke to you?
I mean, like music wise, like bands wise, like my first tape that a friend made me had like Gorilla Biscuits on it. So of course that was huge for me. Had Firestorm on it, I think. So even that Firestorm 7-inch I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely I think the Victory bands were kind of like I guess pretty early Victory though. It was kind of like a catalyst to get me into hardcore, and then started discovering stuff that just way more crazy and screamy. I want to say there was a band that was, I think, on that same tape called Fallacy.
Okay.
Like Phallacy. I don't remember who it was.
Sure. I've just
They
heard
were
of
awesome. There's that band Bound was on it.
Oh yeah. Pre-Kid Dynamite. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just had like stuff like that. And I think that's the stuff that hit me a little harder. Like Frail. Loved that. Groundwork.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much that realm,
Sure.
That's the stuff I gravitated towards. And like we'd go see like the whatever hardcore bands were coming through town. We'd drive to Melbourne from Orlando to go see them. So we'd go see like Earth Crisis and Snapcase and stuff like that. But I just wasn't super interested in it.
Right. I mean, especially too, when you start to feel like you're getting into things that are even more obscure or next level deep than your friends, where it's like, hey, yeah, that's cool. You like, the more mainstream hardcore. We're like, have you heard this band? Have you heard, Sleepy Time Trio? And people are like, what the hell are you talking about, Jeff?
Yeah,
It's like, yeah. Rockabilia.com is the place where you need to purchase merchandise at a discounted rate. When you use this promo code, 100 words or less, gets you your entire order for 10% off. And plus, it benefits the show because obviously the company then goes, yo, marketing works, blah, blah, blah. You get it. But let me just go through some of the cool stuff that they have done recently as far as the limited edition things are concerned. We got Typo Negative. We got Aquabats. We got Ghost. We got Gojira. We got Misfits. So as you can see, they work across a broad spectrum of sounds and bands and shapes and sizes. And I can tell you that you will be able to do all of your holiday shopping at one spot, and then you use the promo code 100 words or less, 10% off, and then boom, Done. Ships from the Midwest here in the United States of America. Gets to you very, very fast. Quick and efficient customer service in case you run into any issues. I love this company. I love what they do. They've supported this show for quite some time. And I think that you today, of all days, should go to rockabilia.com and use that promo code 100 words or less. You'll be shocked at how much stuff they have. Because I know every time I go to their website and just poke around, I'm like, oh, really? You got this? Damn, you got this? This is so cool. So have fun shopping at rockabilia.com. Did you, I guess, have the intention, like, once you started to go to shows with your friends and stuff, did you have the intention of wanting to play in a band right away? Or did you have to work your way up to that?
Oh, I mean, I think it was immediately. It's like all of our friends that skateboarded, a couple of them had their own band already. They were a little bit older than us. And like, they were like, I don't know, maybe 17 years old at the time, but they had a band. And we basically took all of their members and got them to like start a hardcore band. So that was my first band. We were called Adversary.
Oh, that's a pretty good name. I can imagine what you sound like. Yeah.
It's definitely like in the realm of, so actually when I left the band, they became that band Carlisle. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but it was like all the same guys pretty much. So like super screamy and a little wild. But yeah, I ended up leaving that band because I was asked to play bass in Reversal Man.
Got it. And what, I know the joke with bass players is that the idea that like, oh yeah, this is going to be simpler than guitar because it's less strings, and bass players are always going to be needed with bands. What kind of attracted you to picking that up?
I don't know exactly. I do remember getting my first bass. I also had an acoustic guitar. I think I just liked the sound of the bass, and I always thought the bass looked cool because it was bigger,
Sure.
And I don't know, maybe I thought some bass players were cool. I thought Nikki Sixx was the shit when I was a kid. So I like that, certain bass players. I think I definitely gravitated. Obviously, like Cliff Burton. I loved that stuff. I wouldn't say a ton of people it really drew to me, but I don't know. I ended up picking it up and still am fairly mediocre at it. So that's all right.
Yeah, that's exactly. It took you, 20 years to get as bad as you are now. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've seen a joke recently. It's like, I got sick of playing guitar, so I picked up a bass and perfected it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's if you did not have a bass player, your band would not sound very good. So you are obviously a integral part to any 4 or 5 piece or 3 piece for that matter.
I have the equipment that I need, and not everyone has that. So
yeah, exactly. What was the I guess expected life path for you in regards to, like, was there any intention of you being like, oh yes, I am going to go into the military, I'm going to have that experience, or was there any other expectations placed on you?
No. I'd say my dad had an odd relationship with the military, I think.
Okay.
Pretty tumultuous. He was in the Vietnam War. He is definitely suffers from some serious PTSD to this day that he doesn't talk about, which is fine if that's what he wants to do. But it was never expected of me to do anything like that, and I never wanted to. I feel like maybe I got into like punk rock at the right time to kind of know what I didn't want to do at the time with that.
Sure.
So I'd say with the bands I was listening to were, telling me that was not what I wanted to do with my life. So
right.
Okay with that.
Right. And especially too, I think people, I'm going to place you roughly, just maybe a little bit older than me, but people of our generation, like most of our experience with, the military and or the Vietnam War was shaped so intrinsically by pop culture. And that idea that it's like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I watched the movie Platoon and I was like, oh my God, dude, like, I can't wait to go to the military. And then once you have your eyes open just a little bit more, it's like, oh no, that's terrible. Like, I can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, I like Full Metal Jacket's probably still one of my favorite movies. And my dad has said about Full Metal Jacket and Platoon, I think is the other one, that those were the closest thing to it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, kind of eerie feeling, and that's enough to make me not want to join the military.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I actually work currently with a lot of former military guys, and you see some of it in some of them where their head's not totally screwed on,
Yeah.
But it's I don't know, it's not for everyone, I would say, I guess.
Yeah. No,
It's not for me.
I definitely agree. So with you, starting to get into all of this stuff and go to shows and everything like that, my perception being from Southern California, and once I started to tour myself and understand like how remote and like how intentional you have to be to get down to Florida, it seemed like there was a tight knit scene in general, even more so than places that you would find, in the Midwest or whatever. Did you feel, I guess, that close knit scene, as it were, within the Florida area that you came up in?
Yeah, definitely, especially Tampa. Everyone was friends with everyone. Tampa was good for that. Like, there was a ton of good bands. I feel like Orlando had its own kind of tight knit group also, but they didn't. We didn't really like intertwine too much. But honestly, like, we never went south of Tampa. Like, I don't think Reversal Man ever played South Florida.
Wow,
like
that's
Miami
crazy.
or anything like that. Yeah, we did. We played like Fort Myers, I think. Or maybe, and definitely like Sarasota, which really those aren't that far from us now, but never in Miami.
Yeah, I mean Miami, I can understand because it's obviously even further, and then you only have one choice to go from a tour routing where it's like, well, I guess we just go back up the other side of Florida that we maybe didn't hit in the way down. But yeah, it's just kind of shocking to hear that, you didn't make your way down there, even though it was, whatever, a 2-hour jaunt. You're like,
Miami's like 4 hours,
okay,
I think.
okay.
It's not too bad, but we would find ourselves going to Atlanta before that, and Atlanta's like 8 hours.
Right. Yeah.
But it's the same thing in Atlanta. Like, they had a pretty tight scene there, and we all got along, and so we played Atlanta a lot.
And kind of hitting on the Reversal of Man tip, like once, you joined, because you joined, was it shortly before the EP was released, or did you record on that, or what was the timeline there?
So they had the demo out.
Okay.
And then they recorded a 7-inch and a split 7-inch and one song that was for a comp. And before any of those were released is when they kicked the original bass player out, and I joined. And it was within a year of them being a band.
Got it.
Yeah. So I got to reap the benefits of like playing this, release show for this comp that we had a song on, and that was my first time playing out of town in Atlanta. So,
got it.
Yeah.
And anytime I'm doing, research for these discussions, and I look at the time frame in which bands existed in, and it seems like such a long period of time, but then once you actually look at it, it's like, oh, like they were only around for like 3 years or 4 years, and it's like a lot gets done with bands in a short period of time, and it's hard to sometimes you just don't think about it until you actually see the numbers in front of you.
It's crazy because putting the 3 LP discography together, and granted there's some re-recorded songs and what have you, but there's 57 songs on that thing, and we were a band for 5 years.
Right.
It's insane.
Totally. It's like the creative output is just like, oh yeah, like we gotta go. And I think that
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about, that idea of just we're, hitting the ground running. Like we just, there's so many things going on. So like, we just want to strike while the iron's hot, even though no one is actually like saying it like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's wild to think about. Like, we would practice every week, and I think we'd, spit out a few songs at a practice. That wasn't abnormal to do. But I also remember like showing up to practice and like, oh, where's John or where's Jason? Oh, I don't know. And, there's no cell phones. We're not calling anybody, and they just didn't show up. So there was a lot of that too. So
Right. Yeah. It's like you call their house, they're not there. It's like, well, okay. I know they're not there. So yeah.
exactly.
Right. When you started to experience the first, like, out of town shows and, minor touring that you maybe did at the very beginning, was it what you thought it was going to be, or was it pretty surprising?
I have no clue what I would have thought it would have been.
Sure.
So I guess that's hard to say. But I was definitely like, I'm trying to think. So my first tour, we just went up the east, not even the East Coast, but like up through like Tennessee. We broke down in Tennessee, and then somebody drove us in their pickup truck with a topper on it and a trailer to Chicago, and then back to Tennessee. That was the first tour I ever went on, and everything was awesome. I think we played with like Piebald in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Amazing.
And then we went to Indianapolis to play with Los Crudos and MK Ultra, which was incredible. And then Chicago, we played with, at the time, was Locust and Jenny Piccolo and Los Crudos. And that was like huge for me. It's like, I loved all those bands. So that was, I don't know what the word would be. That was like pretty crucial for me. Like, I don't know. It was awesome to be able to do it, because, I never thought, like I said, it's not like it was huge shows or anything, but they stand out in my mind, almost, 20 something years later.
Oh yeah. Well, especially too, when the moment that you start playing with bands you like you've listened to before and you respect them, you're just like, why the hell is my dumb band getting to play with these bands that are like infinitely better than anything that I've done?
Yeah. Cause like at that time it was, we were going to Chicago. We were going to play with Locusts, and it was, to us, that was like, oh, this is the new Swing Kids band,
Yep.
Because we didn't know any different besides that. And it was very exciting.
Yeah. That's incredible. And, I'm guessing after, I know myself, I discovered the band off of the first EP, and it seems like that is when, the ball started to proverbially roll for you guys, where, people nationwide started to recognize the band, and not just like, in the South or Northeast or whatever, or West. Did, for you, when did you feel like people were starting to pay attention in a little bit broader terms than what you had, maybe previously experienced?
I'd say it was probably when Kent from Ebullition offered to do a record. So I think the original plan was to put an LP out that Intention Records was going to do, who put out the Split with Holocron. And then obviously Kent asked us, and it was just something we couldn't say no to. I think that was pivotal in more of like a, oh shit, this is fucking awesome. We're going to be on a label with a ton of bands that we love and respect, I think it was that moment, and then the actual getting to put that record out, and then, obviously a year before that, the tour with Ass Suck was huge. Like, I guess going out of town and not realizing how much people loved that band.
Yep.
Like they were obviously huge here and everyone loved them. Still probably one of the greatest bands to come out of this area. And then to be able to travel all over the States with them and see how many people actually loved them,
Yep.
that was something else.
Right.
And also to show up to shows that no one was at. It happened.
You listen to this podcast because you like independent music, but then I'm also guessing that you like to order music and shirts and stuff from places on the internet, right? How about our friends at evilgreed.net? They are a web store solution provider located in Berlin, Germany, but you as the consumer, you benefit greatly because they have all of these cool shops from record labels and bands that are of this very highly curated look. But first, before I espouse more reasons why you need to go to the website and shop till your heart drops, or maybe, heart drops, I don't know, stomach drops, whatever. Use this promo code, 100 words. It gets you 10% off your entire order. And let me just give you a little sampling of what they got going on right now, as far as like whether it's pre-orders, new stuff they have going on. They work with Nothing. They work with Relapse Records. They work with Sargent House. They work with, how about the New Hope Conspiracy EP? You can order from them. Trust me in saying that if you are into the artistic heavy stuff, you will absolutely adore what they have going on. So again, go to evilgreed.net, use the promo code 100 words, 10% off your order. And I know I said they're based in Berlin, Germany, but it gets to you very fast. The shipping rates are very advantageous for us here in the United States. It's a win-win scenario for you and the fact that you can use a promo code and the fact that Evil Greed then goes, hey, our marketing works. All of these things are great. So evilgreed.net, promo code is 100 words. Use it now, buy some vinyl, buy some shirts, and then you'll be set for the holidays. So thank you, Evil Greed. As you started to participate in all this, like how did your parents react to you being like, oh, I'm in a band and I'm going on tour? And, obviously they were permissive because clearly you did it. Mm-hmm. But were they, very concerned about what Jeff was getting into and bringing home?
No, they were actually pretty cool about it. Like that first tour I went on, I was 15 years old, so I couldn't even drive yet. But they were always cool about it. Like I said, when I was in high school, I had my own car, so I was always driving down to Tampa from Orlando. And then I think when I told them I was going to move from Orlando to Tampa, maybe that they were a little disappointed, but at the same time, like I wanted to do what I was doing. I didn't have plans on like going to school after high school or anything. I was just going to do the band thing for as long as it lasted. So I did. And I don't know that they were ever disappointed in that, but
right.
I don't know. Also, I don't care.
Totally. You're like, this is what I'm doing. So
yeah.
When you, did that tour with Asuk, and then, when you guys went out again, obviously after the, it was right after This Is Medicine came out, as you guys supporting that record. Did you feel like, you had momentum? Like, did you notice the change and, not maybe like, oh my gosh, now it's like 400 people are showing up to a show, but like, did you feel that kind of forward momentum?
Oh, for sure. So like obviously going out with Asuk, we were supporting them. And then the next year it was Combat supporting us. And I'd say most of the shows were equivalent to most of the Asuk shows. There was a few that we played with, some of the bigger bands and that kind of stuff. But I'd say they were very similar. And I think we noticed that we were able to tour on our own, and that was satisfactory.
Sure.
Yeah.
How did you guys deal with the even though you kept it obviously very DIY, hand to mouth, like survival mode for the band, you clearly had to wrestle with the idea of, okay, here's, like we made some money off shirts and we obviously got paid, $100 to play this show. How did you guys, I guess, like treat the business of the band? Or was that something that you just were kind of like really putting like to the back burner because
Um,
you didn't want that to be a burden?
I think I don't think we ever really discussed it too much, but we would go on tour. Like, so we'll say the tour with Combat. We brought our friend Diana with us, who did the merch, and she kind of held all the money and that kind of stuff. And every night after the show, we would get a little per diem for food if the show was good enough.
Right.
And back then, it didn't have to be, it could be $10 and you can get a meal. So it was usually something like that. And then from what I recall, we would come home and just divvy up the money.
Sure.
Yeah.
Split it 4 ways.
Yeah, and obviously this is 1999. I think my rent was $200. So I was able to not have to like go right back to stocking shelves at Party City,
Right.
I was able to like, I guess take time off for lack of a better term.
Right.
And we were able to play music more, or practice more, or whatever it was we were doing more. But it wasn't like nothing we could survive off of.
Right. Yeah. It was very transactional.
Yeah. And I don't even remember like how much we were making to play whatever show wherever. I don't remember.
No.
That wasn't a thing that stuck in my mind.
No, well, and especially too, where it's like when you're talking about like, I'm sure your recording budget for This Is Medicine was like, $1,500 or whatever, or it's like just something where it's like you don't put that in context for what a record budget should be for a band that's like, oh yeah, like now bands would record for $10,000 for like 4 weeks, and it's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Where's it? I don't even know where that money is going. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I think we got lucky with that kind of stuff. Like, obviously friends with Steve Heritage. He worked at More Sound. So we would, for This Is Medicine, we snuck in there at nighttime and basically recorded most of the record there and then some of it back at his apartment for a lot less than we would have paid to actually go there and record.
of course, pennies on the dollar. The overnight shift.
Yeah.
So when, Reversal Man was dying down, I know you obviously played in Combatwoundedveteran as well. And I know the relationships run deep because like you said, Reversal Man, you toured together. Combat's another interesting band because that definitely, has left a legacy, not only from people gravitate towards the band either from the name or obviously all the art that exists around the band. How much did that differ from your experience of Reversal Man? Because I know you obviously like didn't play as many shows as Reversal Man did, or maybe I could be misremembering that. But what was the difference between the two, you'd say?
So I joined Combat after Reversal Man broke up.
Right.
And by that time, Chris from Combat and Dan Ratty, that was in Combat, they were both in Reversal Man. And when I joined Combat, Chris moved from vocals to guitar, and then their bass player, Dan Shook, moved from bass to vocals. So I stepped in as the bass player. So I was playing with the same two guitar players I was playing with in Reversal Man.
Right.
But definitely different aspect with like Jason Hammaker playing drums. He lived in DC while we were doing it. So he would come down for like a week and we would write a few songs and then record them real quick. And that's how we were able to do the last two records with Combat. It was just writing real quick and then recording very quick.
Right. So it's like whenever stuff could kind of fit into people's schedules, that's how it transpired.
Yeah. And I didn't play a ton of shows with Combat. I played a few here. We did the last 4 Orchid shows. And that was really it. I didn't go on a proper tour with Combat.
Okay. Got it. And like you said, as you were playing this music and touring, like there was no, career aspirations locked into it.
No.
So So, what were you doing as you were, coming home and working? Like, did you have an idea of like, oh yes, like this is, what I'd like to build my life around, besides the music that I'm playing?
So I didn't pay a ton of attention to it while I was playing in those bands.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was in combat, I was throwing bags at the airport for an airline.
Oh, okay.
And, when combat broke up, I ended up talking to one of the mechanics there, and he talked me into going. Basically, he talked me into going to school to get my license to work on airplanes. So I became an aircraft mechanic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The and it's funny because it's like it usually is like that story of what you're talking about, where it's like, oh yeah, like I didn't even think about this being a job or whatever until someone suggests it to you. It's like, oh, I guess I
Yeah.
can do that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went over to school, and I don't know. I was in a strange place in my life too, where I was like, I don't have anything going on. I might as well go to school, and I did, and that's almost actually this year is 20 years ago.
Got it.
Yeah.
Were you, I guess, handy prior to this in regards to like, did you ever work on the tour vans and stuff like that? Or was that
Not so on tour, we always had our friend Davey with us who was super handy.
got
So
it?
it was always him doing it. And I think I had an idea of some of it, but also I wasn't going to do it because Davey was going to do it, and Davey was way better at it.
Right.
And I think I learned a lot of stuff, and like just work, doing random stuff on my car or whatever was fine. I never like dove too deep into it.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think after school is when I really learned how to be a mechanic, and it made more of it made sense to me, and like I said, it stuck.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have continued to obviously play in bands over the duration of your life. I mean, obviously, we're speaking to you on the eve of the Horsewhip release as far as an LP is concerned, and
Mm-hmm.
I know you played Heaven's Gate. And
Mm-hmm.
what keeps you connected? Because I mean, clearly, like there's I'm sure many of your friends that have, just basically either dipped out and like don't go to shows anymore, don't necessarily care about music. That clearly isn't you. What keeps you connected?
I mean, and with doing Horsewhip, we've definitely met a lot of people, a lot of younger people than us. And I think it's just kind of keeping up with them as much as we could. I don't get to go to too many shows
Hmm.
just because it's tough. I still work early in the morning.
Right.
Also, like, I don't want to blame it on being old because there's other older people that go, but like, it's just too much sometimes. I have a lot on my plate.
Of course.
So yeah, it's tough sometimes. We always try to pay attention to like some of the local bands that are doing cool stuff, or, with other friends that, maybe a little more connected than us. And I think through like chat groups, we, pass different, releases that, come out or whatever. It's, I usually find new stuff that way, you know?
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, but to your point, like you still tap into it and you're still connected, and that
Mhm.
must mean that you're obviously getting value out of this somehow. Like you could easily have just been like, that's fine. Like I don't need to, know what this band sounds like, or I don't need to, pick up my bass and play in a band anymore.
Yeah. I actually, I mean, I didn't do it for a while just because I think my work schedule was tough. I worked nights at the time,
Hmm.
so I wasn't able to like, go out at night or be in a band really. It was tough until I moved back to Florida and then started working day shift. Then I started playing some music with Sean, who's in Horsewhip, and Dan, that was in Combat and Reversal with me. We did a little project for a little bit that just kind of fizzled out. One of the other our friend Mike that's in it also, he moved away at the time, so we kind of stopped doing it. And then it took a few years. I think me and Sean and a few other people went camping. We were talking about starting another heavy band, and that was kind of where the Horsewhip idea came from.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just love it makes me happy when you hear about those ideas, because like usually in, most civilians' lives are like, it would be cool. Like, how about we go on like a golf trip to Ireland or whatever? And then it's like, just the idea of like, how about we start like a heavy hardcore band? Like, it's just, I love that concept.
Yeah. It's so it was me and Sean were out there, and then our friend Mike that was in Order of Importance back in the day. It was the three of us that started Horsewhip at first, and yeah, like I said, that was kind of where the idea was born. And then not too long after that, we met Alex, and he plays drums pretty good.
Sure.
So
So
he
he's
was
coming along.
he was an immediate like, all right, we should do this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So,
You also have a fun thing with the vegan hot dog stand that I know that you do.
mhm.
I mean, and clearly that is connected to a lot of the political / philosophical things that you got into via punk and hardcore. Is
Mhm.
that fun for you to obviously kind of like carry these things forward in many ways where obviously many people can stop and obviously not care about that stuff anymore?
For sure. It's so me and my wife do it. Not every weekend. Lately, probably about once or so a month. So
Okay.
it's not as often, but I'd say my guess is about 80% of the people that come to the cart are not even vegetarian. And it's cool to like, get people, maybe interest some people in, broadening their diets, I guess, a little bit.
Hmm.
And I always thought that was kind of cool. Um, and then a year ago, us and four other friends opened a restaurant. So we also have a full vegan restaurant here in St. Pete.
Oh, amazing. What's that called?
Yeah, it's called Good Intentions.
Okay. Got it.
Uh,
And I'm sure there's a bunch of punk and hardcore references sprinkled about, the menu item names and what have you.
I mean, Good Intentions. I took it right from Grill Biscuits.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Just like the, you could, I love traveling around the country and then, going into vegan or vegetarian places. And then if they obviously do have a connection to punk or hardcore, you just see like one or two references and you're like, oh, okay.
hmm
I see where this comes from.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
As opposed to like, being raised with the Supreme Master at Loving Hut or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, no shots against Loving Huts because, they're
No. But yeah, I love like it's seeing it now. Like so many people are have created their lifestyles from their punk and hardcore ethos. I think it's pretty cool.
hmm absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. Especially when you can incorporate that in every aspect of your life. It doesn't have to be this, weird thing you do in the corner. It's just like, oh yeah, you can talk about that, to
hmm
a average person, and they're going to, of course, they're not going to understand the nuances. You're not going to sit there and be like, so here is what his hero's gone sounds like. Like you're not going to do that, but they'll at least know what like punk is or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Have you, the last thing I want to hit on was the idea of, because you have been in this profession for a long time, as far as your work life is concerned, have you run across people that, have experience with, punk, hardcore, broadly speaking, where you can actually, have some conversations, or does that stay, in the closet, so to speak?
There's been very few of them.
Sure.
There's a couple, like obviously we're friends and everything, but one person I met at work was, I remember when they hired him, he rolled his toolbox in and had a Misfit sticker on it and all this other stuff, and ended up talking to him, and he lives down the street from me still, like, and like he's into
Nice.
punk stuff, maybe not quite the same stuff as I am, but it's still there. We can still talk about it.
Right.
And just a handful of other people. One who it's weird because I lived in Ohio for a little while, and so did he. And our time there overlapped with each other, and we ended up having like some of the same friends and stuff like that. And then we ended up working at the same place here in Tampa. Years
Wow, that's
later.
amazing.
Yeah, that was years later too. It was a while. It's pretty interesting.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And I apologize. And I said that was the last question, but I realized I wanted to ask if I put pressure on you to name kind of, a show or two that sticks out in your brain from the, Reversal of Man days, what shows do you comes to your mind as I push you to respond to that?
God, probably. There's definitely a few that have really stuck or resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
One is definitely with the Crimson Curse in Chicago at Fireside Bowl, which that was always one of my favorite venues to play. Another one probably would have been our last show that we played in Europe. It was like I think Kassel, Germany, I think is where it was. It was like a 2-day festival, ton of people there. It was it's pretty emotional, I think. And then another one, actually I think there's video of all of these shows somewhere, but there's another one that we played it's escaping me where it was, in France, Bordeaux, France.
Okay.
And we played on the street in front of the kids' apartment that we were staying in. And it was like a huge like street music festival. So the whole city, there was just bands playing out on the streets, musicians. So this kid knew that and set our show up to be on that same day, just right in front of his building. So we played, and apparently nobody else could play for like at least down our street and probably the next block over because we were too loud. So we just drew like a huge crowd of like just regular people watching us play. So that was pretty cool. And then like I remember because we played during the day and we walked around later on, and there were just random people every once in a while would stop by and tell us that we were great or whatever. I'm like, all right. So pretty interesting. There's a short video of that I think on YouTube somewhere. It's pretty cool.
No, that's cool. I love it's usually like, yes, it's always exciting to play, big shows in front of a lot of people or whatever, but it's usually the, off the beaten path, weird ones where you are playing to people who might not have any experience with aggressive music, and then they watch you and they're just like, that's so cool. Like, I didn't know that people do that or whatever.
Yeah. There's definitely quite a few interesting shows, especially with ASUC too, because they've tended to get on some interesting shows.
Of course.
Played some interesting venues or houses or.
Yeah, I was about to say you're probably being pretty generous by calling it a venue.
Some of them, yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was fun times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, I appreciate you jumping over the technological barriers, and you made this work in ways that I didn't think were even possible, but you did it. And yeah, I appreciate you hanging out with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That was Jeff, just being a great dude. Him and I have kept in touch, and now we are corresponding via the beautiful internet. And just love to hear about his journey and his experience within the awesome hardcore scene. So next week, I have a lifer, I would like to call him. He is Adam Lazzara from Taking Back Sunday. We were able to hook this up, and I actually was able to duck away from my day job for about an hour or so and recorded it at the office, and it was a whole thing. But I was very glad we were able to do that, and that is what I got next week. So until then, please be safe, everybody.